Hello everybody, this is TJ. I'm back here at Cotton Frolic, and Carol's going to do some another tutorial today. So here I'm going to turn it over to Carol.
Hi. Today we're going to work on this little quilt I call Potomac. It has some cute little points in it I think you'll like. Just 3 blocks. And I'll do each one for you so you can see them. Not in the same color.
This is Potomac right here?
Yeah, that's it.
And we've got a dime on there for
size.
Scale.
It's a scale, that's it. That's the word.
Burp, burp. Okay.
God, we've had an incredible week. We have so many people watching the videos that I don't even know what to think about it. And we put a few things up on TikTok, and one of them has gone viral. We have, how many? 28,000 this morning, almost 28,000 views. It's unbelievable. If you have the chance, go see it. It's on YouTube, or I'm sorry, on TikTok.
Cotton Frolic.
At Cotton Frolic. And
follow us on Cotton Frolic on TikTok.
Yeah, we went to the to the Austin Quilt Guild's quilt show a couple of weeks ago, and I took my grandson Brazos, who loves quilts and is starting to make his own little quilts now, we've discovered. And he has started a fabric stash, much to his mother's dismay.
Mm-hmm.
I told her we'll make a space for him here in the studio so he can keep his stash.
What are you going to do?
But as we went through the show, we came across a storybook quilt that really is just an incredible quilt. And it has, the Goldilocks and 3 Bears and Jack and the Beanstalk and Rapunzel and all the, Snow White and the 7 Dwarfs, and it's appliqué. It's just the most incredible quilt, and he was stunned by it, and he stopped and started calling out the names of all the stories that he saw depicted. And at one point with Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, there's a bed, and there's a quilt on the bed in the quilt, which is really amazing. But he's so engaged and so enthralled by this quilt, and that's the one that's just gone viral. It's unbelievable.
That lady who made that one is from not far from here, isn't she?
Yeah, I've tried to contact her and I haven't heard back from her. But
do you remember her name?
Oh. Oh, I'm drawing a blank. It's a
well, look on TikTok, because we did get a video of her name plate up next to it.
We put the name plaques up when we videotaped.
Really nice work she did.
Yeah, well, she did more than one, and there's another one there that's hers. That's a Blue Ribbon winner too. So. Yeah, she's an incredible quilter. I'd like to meet her, but I wanted her to know for sure that so many people are looking at her amazing quilts. I've had a lot of questions about things. One person, well, several people have asked about, do I quilt these little quilts? Do I just make a top and a back, and what do I use in the middle, and do I quilt them? And I don't do a lot of quilting on these. They're so dense and they're so small. If I use embroidery floss, and I do fairly big stitches. But it made me start thinking about hand stitching, which I did for years.
Yes, you did.
And I tried and tried. The only quilt book that I could find was called It's Okay If You Sit on My Quilt. The lady that wrote the book passed away a few years ago, and I have felt this overwhelming sadness about her being gone, because she really introduced me to quilting. I'll show you. But as I tried to learn to hand quilt, Jay made these little whole cloth quilts for me. And, there are always rules, and there were huge rules about, big no-nos about
back in those days, oh my gosh, rules were strict.
Yes. Boop. Well, they were. And this was 40 years ago.
The quilt police would get you.
But Jay did these little whole cloth quilts for me to do. Please excuse this poor girl. She has been through a flood. And she'll never be finished. It's
How old is this? Probably.
Oh my God. Close to 40 years old. 35 years old.
That's what I was thinking.
Anyway, I got started on this.
You see up here where the design is on there, not been all finished quilting, and nobody.
There were about 8 of these.
Yeah.
And I had all of them done, but this one.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the only one that was salvageable. The rest were just shredded and covered with mud. And I never could wash this. It's dirty. But not as dirty as the others were. But we went to the Kutztown Folk Festival. Do you remember?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
When I just started, and I was desperately trying to get hand quilting done. I'd never heard of machine quilting. I don't think it was a thing yet.
No.
and we went to the Kutztown Folk
There was
Festival.
no machine quilting back then.
And the Amish women and Mennonite women make quilts that they auction off, hundreds of them. They're just unbelievable, and it's still going on. And I went up there to see the show and see all these quilts, and there was a Mennonite lady. We read about the classes that they were having, just kind of impromptu classes, and there was a Mennonite lady that was giving a class about hand quilting, and out under spreading oak trees, and about 100 of us went out there and sat under the tree to listen. I had my 2 little girls with me, and she started talking about how you try for 11 stitches to an inch. And I think in the book that I had, it said the same thing, 11 stitches to an inch. So I tried and tried and tried to get 11 stitches to an inch. And I finally achieved it. And I was just thrilled. And so when she said, now you're striving for 11 stitches to an inch, Jay looked at me with a big smile on his face because he knew that I'd finally...
she's doing that.
I finally made it. And the whole crowd went, oh, like, that's a lot.
It is a lot.
And she goes, well, of course you're counting the stitches on the front and the back. And Jay looked at me again, and we realized that I was doing 22 stitches to an inch.
Yes,
I wasn't
yes,
counting,
you were.
I wasn't counting the back.
You were.
It was such a surreal moment. And
it was.
And then I went home and I tried to loosen it up a little bit, and I had a really hard time.
Yeah.
So I measured this last night. I don't know if I have I thought I had, oh yeah, I do. Here's a little. This is after that. And I was trying to see how many stitches there are to an inch. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9.5. This is me trying to loosen up.
Yeah, that's her loosened up.
I wasn't doing 22 stitches to an inch, but I finally got to the point where I had about 18 stitches to an inch, and that was it for me. That's as big as I could do it.
Yeah.
No toe catchers there. But I don't do a lot of hand quilting anymore.
Yeah.
You've seen my arthritic hands.
That was back when we had young eyes and young hands and young fingers.
I didn't realize how bad my hands were until I saw myself on camera.
Oh,
Yikes.
stop it.
And I can still hand quilt, but I don't know if I could ever do that again. Okay.
That's a lot.
I still remember the feeling I had though when I...
So what are we making here now?
These are the 3 blocks. This is I'm doing them in a different color just so you can see them differently. But this is the little flower in the middle. It's a really simple little block. It's only 7 pieces. If I can remember what I'm doing here. I pull these things and...
There's our pattern for
there's
today.
our pattern. It's number 15.
So if you buy the pattern, which is on Etsy, you get the PDF downloadable, and it comes with 3 sizes, the 1.5 inch, 3 inch, and 6 inch. What she's making today is the 1.5 inch.
Yeah, my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
So these little pieces look so tiny, and I know they're intimidating, but I promise it's so easy.
You can do it. It's easy.
It is easy. It's a lot. Let me put on my reading glasses.
Oh my.
The bane of my existence, these reading glasses.
Mm-hmm.
These are very male-looking reading glasses. I'm not sure where I got these, but they work.
The businessman glasses.
Oops, what am I doing? Hang on, I'm not lined up here.
Oh.
Not thinking about what I'm doing. Okay, there we go. Okay, so we're stitching from 1 to 2.
So a lot of you may be quilting along and sewing along with us on patterns you've already gotten, which is a lot of fun.
I know I'm getting good feedback about it. I wrote them the same way I speak, so hopefully they seem to be making sense to people. That's the important thing, is that you can understand it. And then I'm showing online how to do each block, so
That's right.
if you have any questions about it, you can follow along with me.
So I think now we've got up the paper piecing 101, which really is in detail about exactly how to do a paper piece with a lot more detail than what we talk about on these.
Yeah.
And then we have one up on finishing a quilt. And then I think we have 2 other quilts. We have Midnight Meadow or Midnight Rainbow and Christiana, right?
Yeah.
And we'll get Potomac up here in a few days, and we'll get the pattern up.
We're getting there.
And we're getting some single blocks up too, so if you want to, I think there's
Oh,
one
yeah.
up right now, but
That's something I should say something about. Excuse me moving the sewing machine back and forth. I'm having to do this because I don't have a place to iron next to me like I usually do. I have a lot of little blocks that make, I really like repetitive, well, you've seen my little heart quilt. Most of you have seen the little heart quilt. I like quilts that use one block over and over again too. And so I have some blocks that really lend themselves to that. So I thought I'd put them out separately. So if you're thinking you'd like to do this, but you're not sure you want to tackle a whole quilt, you can get the individual blocks. And then if you like it, then you can do a bunch of them, 16 of them, I do at least, and make a little quilt and see what you think about it. If you want to invest in it more and try more patterns. But some of the quilts really lend it. I should have brought a quilt to show. I have a black and white quilt, or I'm sorry, black and red quilt made with this little block here that's really pretty.
which block?
This little block here with all the points in it.
Oh.
And it's just red and black.
Yeah.
It's really pretty. Well, if I do say so myself. I don't mean it that way. Red and black is pretty stark, but it's really a pretty quilt. Okay, so 1 is the yellow, the little center of the flower, and 2 and 3, I have a whole box full of these that look like sky and water to me. They're just batiks, and some of them are hand-dyed things that I did myself, and I use them a lot. Okay. I have to think what I'm doing. I find myself talking, and then all of a sudden I'm like, whoa, where am I?
What was I doing?
I know.
Oh, yeah.
It's as simple as going from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3, but
Fortunately, there's numbers on there.
very easily distracted. I'm trying to make sure I don't unthread my sewing machine. We all know how miserable that is. Oops, I'm sorry. I'm thinking I'm doing this in my little room and nobody's watching. And you don't have, I've had a lot of questions about measuring this. You don't have to measure this. They're not going to get pushed and pulled like regular bed quilts and things are, so you don't have to worry about the seam allowance too much. I don't worry about it at all. Most quilt fabric you can't see through anyway, and the big thing with the seam allowance is that you don't want to see from the other side. You don't want to see it jagged or one's short and one's long, but you can't really see. What I'm saying doesn't make any sense.
Most of the seam allowances you're ending up cutting are probably closer to an eighth of an inch than they are
yeah.
a quarter of an inch.
Yeah. Now this is one of those pieces that can get you. That's why I'm showing individually how to do these, because it looks like a piece half this size would cover that, but I cut a bigger piece because I know that when I fold it over, it's not going to do it. If you're spatially challenged like I am,
Spatially or specially?
so, well, I'm specially, I don't know, challenged.
Short bus riding?
Yeah, don't start.
Yeah.
But anyway, you just get a little bit of extra material to make sure that when you fold it over, it's going to cover the whole thing. And it's real easy on these diagonal ones to make that mistake, and then you have to pull it out. So I just try to save myself that angst and make sure I use a big enough piece of material. I'll show you what it does when it folds over. If I'd had a narrower piece of material, it wouldn't have covered it. I'm glad I'm showing it, because talking about it doesn't make any sense. And I can't learn anything from reading it either. I have to have a visual. So hopefully this is helping some people that are challenged like me. Okay, so if this was just 1 inch, it would only fold over to like there. So since I made it like an 1.5 inches wide, it covers the whole.
Covers the whole
Yeah, it
pattern.
covers the whole thing.
So we don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. And that's, it's something you learn the hard way when you do this. But people are so afraid of paper piecing, and that's as bad as it gets right there. That's the thing. There's that little biting fly again. Go away. it covers the whole thing, so we're okay. All right, so more background. These little flowers out on a sunny day. And here we are in midday, so the light's not working as well as I need it to see through it. Oops, in there. Usually I chain stitch these. I say that all the time, but I worry about people seeing one for the first time and they see me pull out this big piece of thread, and I'm very conservative about material, as you have seen, and about thread. I wouldn't normally do it this way. I'd normally have at least 16 blocks that I'm working on all at the same time, and I'd be chain sewing it.
You'd just be sewing one piece onto each block as it goes through in a big long chain.
That's right. And
Then you cut them apart and then move on to the next.
Trim them and iron them and start over.
Yep. But for making a quilt, it's much more efficient and a lot faster.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, chain stitching is definitely the way to go. I learned that early on.
Maybe one day we'll
do a whole one.
Well, get that in here somehow.
I don't know. That'd be a lot like watching paint dry, I think.
Well, what color of paint? I mean,
I try to keep it in mind that somebody watching this may actually be trying to make this pattern, and this helps if you get to watch somebody else do it and you're confused. But doing 16 of these in a row would probably be pretty dreadful, I think. Well, I don't know. They'll tell us. I love how you all respond to things I say. I've had people ask about dyeing fabric, which I know how to do pretty well.
Yep, you do.
That's how the name Cotton Frolic came about. I took a class. If you want to learn, people have said to me, it'd be great if you taught how to dye fabric, and I can do that, but I'm not an expert by any means. But I know somebody who is. Her name's Carol Soderlund, and I took a dye class from her years and years ago at Nancy Crow's barn in Ohio. If you don't know who Nancy Crow is, you need to look her up. She's one of the most.
Shame on you.
No, a lot of people are just starting, and when I was just starting, I had no idea.
My bad.
But Nancy Crow is lauded as probably one of the best modern quilters ever, and she has this incredible Amish barn. What am I doing? I'm trimming the quilt block. But she has this incredible barn, and they teach classes there. And I was pretty awestruck by Nancy Crow. When I tried to talk to her, my knees were knocking, and I thought I was going to pass out, and I finally said it out loud. I feel like I'm going to pass out, and she helped me sit down. I said, I'm so sorry. I've read your books, and I love your work, and I've watched everything I've ever been able to find about you, and I can't believe I'm meeting you face to face. She's one of my idols, that's for sure. But Carol Soderlund taught this class, and I came back with a book with about 3,000 colors in it that I learned to do in this incredible method that she taught us how to do. But
first block.
the first block's done. That was easy.
Okay.
Found myself cutting it. I thought, oh, what are you doing? Here, we'll do this one right. I do this one a lot. Everything I do is scrappy, you may have noticed. And this quilt, this little block really lends itself to that. I'll make a lot of them, and they'll all be green. All these will be different colors of green, or whatever color. I love to do that. But
so
this
we're making that block right now.
On the corners. Oh, well, that shows exactly what I'm talking about. Just all, it just showcases
Different
a bunch of
shades.
little fabric, little pieces
Of the
fabric
same
together.
color, but they create a real nice visual effect.
Okay, so we start on 1 and we're going to 2. So 1 and 2. And this first one always faces out. And then this one, they face together, kind of like when you're sewing a
Face to face.
face to face. Go away, fly. All of a sudden, all the flies are coming in the barn. There must be a window open somewhere. What? We have horses, and with horses come flies. They like the molasses feed. Okay, 1 to 2 is done. I'm just going to sweep up after myself. I'm trying too hard to keep the threads off the floor. Do it. Oops. And get the paint trimmed. Missed that somehow. These glasses. I didn't bring my good reading glasses down. That's my excuse for today. I love this little quilt. Quilt block, I mean. This is a little block that makes a really great overall quilt. You can use this block and make 16 of them. And I just got every color in the rainbow for this one. But I'm not putting them in the order of a rainbow. I'm just doing this fast, so if you're trying to do this block, this little bit of instruction may help if you're confused. But if you're a beginner, go back and find my Quilting 101, and it'll really show you how to do this piece by piece and in great detail. So it'll take the confusion out of it if this is going too fast. Yellow number 4. Oops. Don't unthread on my machine. Somebody asked about how often I have to change needles, and I don't change them very often. Yeah, God, I'm a renegade rule breaker. I've read in all the books that you should change your needle every 2 days if you're working on a quilt and, you know, putting in 3 or 4 hours a day. And I sew all the time, all day, every day.
Including through that paper.
Including through the paper, which I'm sure does. Well, that's why people are writing to me asking about how often you do that, because they're worried that it dulls it. And you can hear it when the thing is becoming dull. You can't see it. It's so microscopic, but you can hear it. And you'll just be sewing along and you'll hear this like thud thud thud, and you know your needle is too blunt. I just go by ear, but I don't change them more than about once every 2 weeks, if that. I mean, it may even be longer than that. I'm going to have to time myself now. But you can hear it. It's just sewing normally. You're hearing the little snap of it going through the paper, but that's not what I'm talking about. When it's dull, you'll hear it make a definite thud. Small thud, but a thud. So that's not something to worry about. I don't worry about much of this. Somebody asked me, what do you do with these little mini quilts? And I thought, I don't think I've ever stopped and asked myself that question. They're on the walls. They're just decorative. For me, you could have one in a place where you wanted some color in your house, just a small piece. But I like multiples of everything, so that's why I have 21 miniature horses. I started out with one little sorrel, and then I had to have a painted pony, and I had to have an Appaloosa. But these little quilts would cover a wall. That's what I do with them. But there are a lot of people that are into miniatures, miniature houses, and doll houses. And they're perfect for a little quilt on a bed. I have done a lot of those in my day for people that wanted a quilt for bed, a little tiny one in 1/12 scale. How are you feeling, Jay?
I feel good.
I don't hear you sniffling. He's
No, I'm
having a
trying
terrible time with allergies these last
but
few days.
a lot of stuff in the air around here right now.
Yeah.
Everybody's fighting allergies, and
We're in Texas, just north of Austin, in Georgetown, where they keep the old people. There's a Sun City here. And it seems like just about everybody here is our age, but it's one of the fastest growing counties in the country. And so many young people are moving in. I'm thrilled about it. It's changing a lot, and a lot of the old timers here are not happy about the change, but I kind of like change, and it's working for me.
Yep.
I like young people.
They're pretty fun.
Still close to our daughters, and
they bring a lot of new things to see and do, and restaurants to go to.
that's right. Their excitement.
Yep.
We live on this little farm, so we don't seem to notice the number of people moving in, and I know other people worry about that a lot, but it's something that doesn't seem to bother us. I just like change.
It seems like it's growth as opposed to stagnation.
Yeah. But Georgetown's a beautiful city. If you ever have a chance to come here, go to see the town square. It's just beautiful. They were smart enough years ago to start a historic preservation project, and so they're only allowed to change those buildings minimally, and it's just beautiful. It looks the way it did more than 100 years ago. It has some pretty gorgeous little shops and restaurants. Really pretty city. Probably a big part of the reason people come here. We're in Texas Hill Country, and people all around the world seem to know about Texas Hill Country. Okay, I'm putting my... Anybody that knows me knows I use a lot of black and white. I always have. I use a lot of black. But
it sets all the other colors off.
Yeah. I made a lot of little quilts with black and white, and Jay knows whenever I go to a quilt show and people are selling fabric, I'm trying to find every black and white print that I don't have.
Yep, something with a little graphic.
Yeah, whatever. And the quilt show's coming up. My God, I'm so excited. But I made quilts with bright colors and black and white for years. I've told you all the story about my eyes and how color became so important when I found out my eyesight was dimming. And I did that for years, and then one day I saw a quilt by a lady named Freddie Moran. If you've never seen a Freddie Moran quilt, you need to look her up. Her quilts are incredible. We are in this sisterhood of insanity about color and black and white. I've never met her, but she's about my age, and she makes the most incredible quilts, far beyond anything that I have ever done. And she makes big quilts too.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah, it is a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it is the way I do it. I do obsessive things like that cowboy quilt. Don't you have a picture of my quilt somewhere? The cowboy quilt?
Yeah, it's on the computer now. I should post it. So I don't think it's posted anywhere, but...
Well, I'll talk about it on a video somewhere here, and you can work it into the video. But I made this quilt, and it's a mosaic quilt, and it's made with... I don't know what happened here. I've got a little bird's nest going. But I made this quilt years ago, and I started on it, and I hand-dyed all the fabrics. That's why I went and took the dye class, because I started the thing and tried to hand-dye my own colors, and I wasn't getting what I wanted, and there's no consistency. So I went and took this just incredible Carol Soderlund class, and then I was able to finish the quilt. But by then, I was 2 or 3 years into it, and it took me 7 years, and I couldn't even look at it. I just thought I hated that quilt. And we lost it in the flood. It was just ruined.
Yep.
But
And the,
once it went away, then I thought more fondly of it.
the fairy quilt too, I think.
No, I still have the fairy quilt.
Really? I've not seen that.
I have it. And I have that quilt that I started of Chase. Our daughter, who is now 40, I did a quilt of an angel. She's an angel, not a fairy, I think. Or I always thought of her as an angel. But it was really pale colors, and it took a long time to do, too, and it probably has 10,000 squares in it. But by the time I got that done, I think I was over it, too. But I thought if I'm going to do one of these, it was a counted cross-stitch design, both of them were. But I thought if I'm going to do one of these, I really ought to do something that I would fall in love with and just want to keep forever. So I thought I would do my daughter's pictures, and I had to learn how to digitize those things and make a counted cross-stitch pattern out of it.
That one's done now, right?
Yep. All done.
So this one and this one, two of the blocks that are...
I didn't make them to go into a quilt together. They're not exactly the colors aren't great together.
There, and there, and there. There's one more block to go.
Okay, let me figure this out and make sure I do it the right way.
Uh-oh.
This is... Make sure I... I'll put the wrong color in the wrong place, and then I won't know what I've done. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I got it. Okay. So all the ones on this side are red. Get off me, fly. Okay, we're back to diagonals.
Okay.
Just remember to make...
Start with one.
See, this is a very little thing, but I made the material almost twice as wide. Just so when you turn it, it covers it. Don't ask me why it works that way. I can't explain it any better than just showing it. So, anyway, I started making this digitized photograph of my daughter into a quilt, and she didn't know about it. And I had a little quilt shop then on a little farm that we lived on. And, hang on, let me think what I'm doing here. This is one. Is that right? Yeah. No, that's wrong. I want red here. I'm trying to think about where I want what color. Okay, and I want black on number 2. Okay. Anyway, I had a little hanger thing that I could pull up. It was on turnbuckle things or whatever you call them. And so the thing was so big that it was like a billboard. You had to get away from it to see it. When you're just looking at it, it was all these little pixelated squares. And so I made this thing so I could hoist this quilt up into the air and look at it from a distance. So I put the thing up there one day, and I opened the French doors on the front of front of my little studio, and I walked out into the yard, and I was looking at it, and it was amazing. You could see the top of her head and the very top of her eyes. She was only, I guess she was 18 or 19 at the time. Really pretty, blonde, big blue eyes. She was just perfect for a quilt. My other daughter has really curly hair, and I thought that'd be amazing too, to do her hair. But I started on Chase, and I hoisted this thing up, and I went out in the yard to look at it, and then I went back and closed my doors, and Chase came home with one of her friends, and they walked up the hill and past my shop, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I heard her scream, and I went running. Do you know this story?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God. And I went running out there to see what had happened. You know, we lived on a farm on 40 acres, and I was always afraid of snakes and things like that, although we didn't hardly ever have an encounter in the 25 years we were there.
No, it's more just dirt and rocks that you would have an encounter with.
Yeah, but Chase screamed at the top of her lungs, and I thought, oh my God, she's been bitten by a copperhead. And I went running, and she was standing out in that field looking at herself, the
quilt.
top of her head, looking at that quilt, and she just screamed this guttural scream that scared me half to death. And I think she was embarrassed too because she had one of her friends with her, and here's this huge billboard size. Well, anyway, I went and took it down and folded it up and never put another piece of material on it, and I still have it.
Mm-hmm.
But she asked me one day, whatever happened to that quilt? And, now she's 40, and now she would probably like to have that quilt if she could have it. And she goes, whatever happened to that? I've thought about that forever. And I said, oh, I still have it, but it'll never get done. I'd already put months into it just with the top of her head and getting down to her eyebrows and her eyelashes. And she goes, well, I didn't think you ever finished it, but I want you to finish it. And I was like, not a chance. I'm too old now. I'd be a 90-year-old woman trying to get the thing done. But yeah, that was her reaction. She couldn't believe that I was just so stupid that I would take the thing down and never finish it. And I said, Chase, you screamed. I thought you'd been bitten by a snake. That's how loudly you screamed. And she goes, well, it was just shocking to look up and see the top of my head on this quilt. So I still have it. I'll drag it out one day and we'll pin it up on the wall.
Oh my gosh.
And we can show everybody what it looked like now that I've told this story.
Mm-hmm.
But, okay, it's red. I'm talking and not thinking here. I need the thinker. It's all going to be sawtooth and not what I want. Yeah. I have that little apple over there. You know the quilt I'm talking about?
Uh-huh.
It's over there on the... Man, I'll have to get that out so they can see what I'm talking about. It's all just little half-inch squares.
It's where, here?
Yeah, it's over there on top of my cloth cabinet.
Well,
I can go get it later while you're looking at the colorways here.
the color stories.
Color stories. I know. I've always called it colorways, but I see that everybody's calling it color stories, and I like that. I like that better.
It's a fun name.
Yep. On my bio, on the thing, it always says that I'm a storyteller. I think everybody that's listened to any of my videos has that figured out already.
Mm-hmm.
I love to make people laugh. That's the thing. If I can make you laugh, but I can't think of a whole lot that's funny about quilt making, so I'm sure nobody's laughing, hopefully. What's the lady's name on the Netflix thing? Leanne Morgan. Oh, if any of you want a reason to laugh, go on to Netflix and look up Leanna Morgan. I think, I can't remember what the show's called. It's Everyday Woman or I'm a Woman, something about a woman. I laughed so hard at her that I laid my head down on the table and just cried. It was so funny. My daughter Shane called me one night at about 10 o'clock. Mom, what are you doing? And I probably was sewing. And she said, turn on the TV, go on to Netflix, and put on this woman, Leanne Morgan. She's a comedian. It's a very clean show. There are no bad words. She's just so funny.
Hilarious.
Yeah, and just telling the stories that we have all lived. Leanne Morgan. God bless Leanne Morgan. She made me laugh so hard. She and Wanda Sykes. Wanda Sykes has a show. God, and I can't think of the name of that one either.
Is it the I'ma Be Me or?
I'ma Be Me. Yes,
like that,
that's
yeah.
it. How
Oh
did
my
you
God.
come up with that? And she talks about getting a bikini wax. I see you remember.
Yeah, I do.
Oh, God.
She's hilarious.
I thought I would pee my pants. There was one part that was so funny. I just bawled. I couldn't stand it. I had to not listen for a minute. I was overwhelmed. I was just screaming, laughing. I remember when Chase bought tickets for all of us to go see Margaret Cho in concert. Do you remember?
Yep.
And I laughed so hard. They were videotaping that for probably for Netflix or somebody.
Yeah, she was in Houston.
Yeah,
for that
and
show.
I was the idiot. You know, there's always some crazy person in the audience that laughs harder than everybody else, and that was me. I just laughed and laughed. I love to laugh anyway, but I laughed until I hurt myself at that. It was so funny. Okay, we're almost there.
Yep.
2 more. Oops. I thought, what happened to my stitching? Okay, now I go over the line. This is something a lot of people are happy about learning. A lot of people think you have to stop right at the end of the line when you get there, and you don't. You can sew on and then just peel it back to where your last line of stitching is. See why I had to think this out. Otherwise, I'd have had black where I wanted red and red.
But this will be fun to look at and show them how,
Oops.
with the different colors, even though there's like these triangles that look like they might be teeth or something, that's not what we're going to see. We're going to see more of a shading of color and the way it works with that.
That made sense.
Well,
let me see. I want to try to get my lines straight.
Made sense to me.
Oh, my light's not bright enough to see through it. I'm trying to see through black. I just wanted to see if I can get my lines straight. As straight as possible. I'm 73. Everybody forgives you everything. It's like everything is a senior moment when you're my age. It's all okay. I just realized I did 2 numbers out of order, but it didn't make any difference. This was 8 and that was 9, but they're separated, so it didn't make any difference.
No, but you should follow the numbers.
Yeah, when you're just beginning, follow the numbers.
Because
sometimes you can really paint yourself into a corner.
Sometimes it does make a difference.
It does.
Until you kind of understand how that works. You know.
I'm doing too much talking and not enough concentrating. I forget that the people are watching and that I need to think about what I'm doing so it makes sense. Almost done.
We're just hanging out.
I know,
sewing.
It's like we're both sewing.
Yep.
I love it that I've had a couple of comments from people watching saying, I'm sewing right along with you. I feel like I'm sewing right along with you.
It's fun.
I know. If I could, I would just sew all day, every day. And that's I was just thinking, that's pretty much what I do, isn't it? I thought you would say that before I thought it.
Yeah.
Okay, almost done, all 3. Almost there. Oh, good. No thread on that side. Okay. Excuse my ratty little washcloth here that I'm ironing on. These 2 pieces I just had already cut, so I just used them as they are. But after I cut away what doesn't belong on this quilt, I'll have little pieces I'll throw back in I have little colored drawers of the whole rainbow. So red will go in red and black will go in black, or black and white. And I'll get to use these little pieces extra here again. That's one of the things I love most about paper piecing on this scale, because everything's usable again until it's 1 inch by 1 inch, and if you get below that, you don't have enough for seams. There you go.
Okay, so there we go. Pretty awesome.
So while you show them the colorways, I'll get this little mosaic.
Okay, so these are the 3 blocks we did today. going in this color story of a quilt. And then Carol has some other blocks in different colors to give us a different color story. So this one, you can see the blocks. And then there's this one. And you can see how, like, sometimes a print or whatever can make a whole lot more interest in your quilt than just a solid color. And then, what do you have here? Oh, this is the, okay, this is one of her
American Apple quilts.
American Apple. And
This is the first one I ever made.
you can see those are the...
That's small there.
Can you hold that dime up or whatever to...
Oh, the
Yeah,
dime.
you need another hand.
That third hand.
Yeah.
There you go.
See, there's a dime, so you can see the size of the...
They're smaller than
They're
half inch.
smaller than the dime.
They're smaller than a half inch.
Yep.
Well, this is the first mosaic quilt I ever made, and I don't know if anybody has any interest in this. This is another thing I've never seen anybody do the way I do it, and I just can't imagine doing it any other way. I've seen people that wrote books about mosaic quilts and things like that, and they're cutting out the material into, you know, half inch by half inch blocks.
Not you.
Or 1 inch by 1 inch, and I made paper piecing strips and sewed it all on, and then I just sewed the strips together, and it made it really easy.
It did.
This design,
And it made all the seams match up
and all
really...
the seams match perfectly.
Yep.
It can really get wonky if you're trying to cut material that small in an exact half inch.
Yeah,
or
an eighth of an inch or a 16th of an inch going
Makes
across
all the
5 or
difference in
6
the world.
rows can all of a sudden be, oops.
But this was a counted cross stitch to go on your pocket. That's how small it was. It was just a little tiny counted cross stitch thing, and I printed it out, and I pulled out the colors that I needed and sewed these strips. Isn't it cool? I mean,
It
I
is
made
cool.
this 35 years ago, 40 years ago maybe.
And those are all hand-dyed too, aren't they?
Yeah, they're all hand-dyed. This is before I went and took Carol's class.
Yeah.
I didn't know. It would be a lot more intense in color now.
Yeah.
If I dyed it now that I've learned how.
Those are a lot more muted
And I
colors.
hand stitched this one too. I'd forgotten it. It's all hand stitched in diagonals,
Oh.
and then this little meandering. Isn't that weird? I don't remember doing that. That's how long ago it was.
Yep.
Well, is that it?
That's
It
everything.
for today? Thanks for coming. I'm standing up. Oh my God.
Yay. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you next time. Bye. Come get our patterns on Etsy/shop/Cotton Frolic.
Thank
And
you.
follow us on TikTok and YouTube.